Hey, what's going on, everybody, and thanks for joining us again for another Rethink Solutions. Today we're hitting one of the hardest topics and one of the most relevant. The social media symptoms and how to get ahead of them, because there's so many. We all know the major impacts that social media has on our lives and our mental health, but we don't really directly address how we can get around them and live with them, because I don't think we're ever going to escape them. They're never going away. So for me, when I address what kind of symptoms are brought to us by social media, I think of four major points: the impact on mental health, the depletion of attention, isolation and division, and control over public attitudes and opinions. Okay, so firstly, we have an impact on the mental health, whether individually or just as a community. The mental health is attacked. And we had recently, there was that Facebook debacle. I don't know if you remember, where an employee quit Facebook and became a whistleblower named Frances Hogan, 37, a data scientist from Iowa with a degree in computer engineering and a Harvard master's degree in business, was for 15 years working for companies including Google and Pinterest, and then was hired by Facebook to conduct studies on the impact their platform has on their users. What she came out and spoke against was that their platform directly made their users more miserable, agitated, and upset, because what they learned was that forced them to engage on the platform more. So they had an algorithm created to push you into misery. And then we're surprised when we have suicide rates going through the roof as a result of these types of behaviors. Additionally, a symptom of social media is the depletion of attention. So we have things like TikTok coming out and showing how these 6-second to minute-long bits of information, and then immediately swiping to the next and the next. So you're seeing Reels on Instagram and Shorts on YouTube cater to the same audience, because we're depleting our attention span. I laughed so hard because I created a tweet for the Rethink Tank the other day, and it got flagged by TikTok. I got pulled on TikTok with a strike, a community guideline strike, for just posting the tweet. Nope, just a music and the tweet. And the tweet was, Hitler burned books. Today, modern fascists just deplete our attention to such a degree that we don't have the attention span to even just pick up the books. So they just sit there. No need to burn them. And that got us pulled from TikTok. So it makes you wonder, what was, it was like harassment or something, or, pushing an ideology or something. Why is it? Are you the culprit here? Are you the one that we need to be worried about depleting our attention span? Moving on. So thirdly, a symptom of social media is isolation and division. We're more connected than we've ever been before, and yet we feel more alone. It's because we've created an environment where nobody's vulnerable, nobody's real. Everybody's got it. When I first started my Instagram, I was posting silly little videos, me having fun, and people were like, Your Instagram makes me mad. That's not how you're supposed to use Instagram. It's supposed to be pictures with cool cars and cool places, and you're supposed to be phony. That's what it was. And the reason why it agitated those people were because they weren't allowing themselves to be real, to be vulnerable. And so because they felt imprisoned by the social unspoken rules of Instagram, they took offense that I wasn't. Well, you got to abide by these rules. If I got to take pictures in front of cars and in front of travel, vacations, then you got to do the same. I don't want to. You can't have fun. So they make all these social rules and force us to push a phony side of ourselves that doesn't even exist. And then we all get upset when we're living a plastic Kardashian lifestyle. But then also, it puts us in echo chambers. We're deleting people on Facebook and everything else, probably because they're using those posts to upset us. And we're deleting them because they think differently than us. And so then we find ourselves in an echo chamber of only people that are like-minded and see the world the way we do. And then we feel alone because there's only 5 of us. And then lastly, the other symptom that is a major symptom that really isn't a symptom to us, the user, but more just a social result of all of this. And that's these conglomerates have control over the public attitudes and opinions of all of us. So where we think we're coming up with organic, real opinions and attitudes, they're being steered and catered by these social media platforms. How can we sit here and say in 2016, Russia stole the election, and then we're going to pretend like those same conglomerates that didn't change anything about their algorithms or their involvement in our elections, oh, but they didn't have any impact now because the dead guy's in, and I voted for the dead guy. I like the dead guy, so there's no impact now. We understand that there's all of the, I think I saw that like 12% of Twitter is bots. So think about that. Like, out of how many millions, a tenth of the people aren't even real, and that's what we know of. So now you've got bots that are just stirring up emotions, and then I think I saw a statistic of like 60% of Christian Facebook pages are Russian troll farms. So again, you have also in these environments mills of emotion that kind of steer our division, but also what we think and what we believe. John, what else do you see as the symptomatic problems of social media?
Well, you went over a lot. And what I would like to add is there is a negative effect on our health physically around the electronics if they're constantly in your pocket, because you have to be connected to every post and every like and just got to be up and up. And so it's one of those things where, again, without going too deep, there's just negative effects on the body from frequencies of like microwave frequencies. You have positive ions versus negative ions, and I can go into that. Just positive ions have a negative effect on the body, and negative ions have a positive effect on your body, which is, I think, the most confusing way to explain it, and I do apologize. So negative ions are good, and these are putting out positive ones. So just know that, and we'll go into solutions later. And then, yes, antisocial. I mean, again, if you're going around and you're talking to people, and they're like this, and then they're like, yeah. Have you ever had somebody kind of just... You're talking to them and they're doing this, and if you're listening, they're looking down at their phone. They're not looking at you. And then occasionally they'll look up and like, yeah. That's freaking annoying to me. And that's super antisocial, because nowadays most people grew up in these phones, right? And so they think that's more real than the real life. And it reminds me of the movie Surrogates with Bruce Willis, okay? And in the future, people have fake body versions of them that are perfect, that are out in the world while they sit at home falling apart health-wise, and they only show their best self, which goes into the other problem, which is fake idealism and fake reality showing itself on social media, and people thinking that's real, and it actually goes towards creating low self-esteem. Those are the things I wanted to bring up. And additionally, piggybacking off of that, we had a debate on one of our podcasts discussing how I think a symptom of like Instagram and the phony posts is you're logging in every day and you're seeing beautiful women, great cars, lots of money, all the cool things, and then guess what? You do nothing. You do nothing, and then you go, well, I want the pretty girls and the nice cars and the rich money and the pools, and it's like, but you did nothing to get it. So because we're logging in every day and we're exposed to it, we expect it, that we want it. I'm owed that, but then I do nothing to actually manifest that in my life. I mean, I'm sorry. In a world where I work my 8 hours and then I come home and do this project till 1, 2 a.m., what are you doing to get the pool, the cars? Just swiping on Instagram? Double tapping for the heart doesn't put it in your driveway. Okay, so let's talk solutions, right, John? Yes, sir.
All right, so I kind of have 3 main solutions. Firstly, the main focus needs to be disarming these vices. there's so much dependency, it lends itself to enslavement. We also need to have a healthy, strong balance. That's number 2. And lastly, we need to maximize real-world connections. So the main focal point for my solution when addressing the symptoms of social media, you truly need to focus on disarming these vices. I am now audibly acknowledging in social real situations that I am addicted to TikTok. It's kind of like a fat person addicted to food. You can't stop eating. Like it's one of those, like if you're addicted to cigarettes, you can also live without cigarettes, but food, you need food to live. Unfortunately, my biggest social media following's on TikTok, and I'm trying to make a thing here. So guess what? I find an excuse to be on TikTok, but now truly acknowledging how it just sucks hours away, and it's incredibly addicting because it's the most intrusive catered algorithm to you. I have to focus on understanding it's a vice, it's an addiction, I need to defeat it. Now, it's kind of like the 12 steps of addiction. Acknowledgement, but now you need to move forward. Because we're becoming incredibly dependent on it. Jon makes a real world example of its enslavement where we're just some artist took pictures of like New York City and photoshopped all the phones out of everybody's hands just so you could see what the world looks like, and we're all just walking around like this. And we're walking by each other. And what's wild is a symptom of that is now when you want to make the real world connection, we'll get to point 3, but when you go like, hi, buddy, they're like, whoa, wait, get back, like plug back in. Like it's one of those, they're surprised. Like it's kind of, and we've seen, I did a podcast episode about dating in the modern world, and there's all these girls on TikTok talking about how it's a total infraction to have men approaching women in the street. Oh, I can't believe that ever happened. And it's like, we're losing that social side to us. So do not become dependent on it. But to point 2, you don't need to go completely without it. Obviously, these aren't going away, and they're a major piece of our lives. Look at Twitter. I mean, I've made arguments on these platforms enough that like that has now become it's no longer just a third-party social media platform, and it's a utility. It's become the talking square. The president does most of its talking and advertising on Twitter. So these are pivotal pieces to our social world now. It's becoming an ingrained fabric to our community. So you can't entirely go without it. However, you need to have the balance with everything. You can have a drink. You could go out and go to concerts, but you can't be the hippie that's going to concerts every day. You got to have a job. You can't be the person that's drinking every day. You can have it on the weekends. You can't be the person that's having cheeseburgers every day. You can have, everything is on balance. This is another type of thing. So how do you kind of traverse this terrain? Maybe to get over the initial hump, at least, maybe you do need to put restrictions on your phone that limit the usage of an app between certain hours, or monitor your screen time. I mean, these things are very real. We've never gotten into it, and Jon, at some point we should, but you're also frying your retinas with all this blue light and everything else. So be conscious of overexposing yourself, but we're not going to sit here and advocate that you have to go without it entirely. And thirdly, what I relate to the most, and I think while it's the least realistic, I do think internally should be your highest focused point, it's maximizing real world connections. And in a world where we're getting increasingly isolated and divided, we're no longer allowed to hang out with people that think differently than us, and we're forcing ourselves in these echo chambers. The way to crack that dam is exposure, real world connections, laughs with people that are different than you. What I've learned, and this kind of beating the drum of an advertisement for the Rethink Tank podcast, but the whole purpose of the podcast has been exposure to different types of narratives and perspectives that are different than your own, because what you learn through that exposure and discussing with people that are different than you is deep down we really agree on most things. It's the nuances of the point that we tend to disagree on, and I don't think you leave those conversations with full agreement, but at the very least, you can have an understanding. And through that connection, we'll deplete the dependency, build community, and we'll have a healthier mental, society, because we're not allowing ourselves to, because at the end of the day, it's a choice. And you have to make the choice to not allow yourself to be harmed or affected or impacted by these social medias. Jon, what solutions do you suggest?
Well, they're very similar to what you said, but I'll highlight the ones that I came up with. And I do agree with a lot what you said. That's why you're going to see some overlap. My highlights are reconnecting with nature as a solution, becoming more social, and last but not least, practice self-awareness. Now, going back to reconnecting with nature, that is actually a more... It's as much psychological as it is physical as a therapeutic option, because the stress of constantly looking and being glued to your phone to figure out if you're being successful or not in your social media aspect, that's stressful. And then being around electronics that just the frequencies and the positive ions that it creates stress. I don't know if you've ever been at your computer for too long and you're just stressed. You need to get up and walk around, get some blood flow going. And what Alex was saying with, yes, I completely agree. Blue lights on phones and displays and stuff, that messes up with your retina, and it also makes it hard for you to sleep. So this is just stress upon stress upon stress. Go out in nature, go for a hike, go for a walk, communicate with people. That has healing properties, right? And when I mentioned, if you're familiar with that term, like negative and positive ions are really good for relaxing the body, and I think they're antioxidant based, and there's just a lot of good benefits. And nature actually provides an abundance of these ions that can help relax you and heal you. So that's the benefits of connecting with nature. Going into the more social aspect, to piggyback off of what Alex was saying, yes, connect and maximize those real world connections with people, because you'll realize that it's a huge difference, and I'm sure there's a huge difference between interacting with someone face to face versus their best self, which is a stagnant photo of somebody, and then text, and that's it. And then hearing, like on the phone, it's just like you have too much time to think. You want to get a feel for the actual person. Some people do FaceTime, but then like now you have like what do you call it? What do you call it when you put it on your face and you look different? It's
mask.
What do you call it? A mask, but like social media, like TikTok does it all the time, where you just make your eyes look bigger and you have fake makeup on. Like that's the direction things are going. So you have all these filters. You have live filters, and they're only going to get better. So why not visit someone and then look at the actual makeup that they're wearing? I don't like too much makeup, so it's an inside joke for myself and my wife, where just when you have caked up makeup, it's just like, as a dude, as a guy, I'm like, it's not necessary. I like seeing the freckles, right? I like seeing I like seeing the stuff that's human. I was just about the humanity. Yeah. I like seeing the fault. I like seeing the crooked dimple. Some people have crooked teeth, and I'm like, I don't know why, but I like that. Whatever the case, it's something, different strokes for different folks, right? So you don't know, and now this is not a dating thing, right? So going back to being more social, yes, there's real-time facial reactions that you need to learn with people if you're going to be successful in life and network and meet with people. And then also on an energetic, on a deeper level, there's a vibration. You know how they say, oh, this person didn't vibe well? It's an actual thing, and we've been so disconnected from that. Look up heart math. There's I think a 6-foot distance of your heart's energy interacting with other people. And with an instant, if it's good or bad for you, if you're in tune. But how are you going to practice that if you're on your phone, right? And then the third one, practice self-awareness, because it's easier to get lost in someone else's ideals and someone else is constantly selling you on social media if you don't know what you want. So one of those things are practice going to the movies by yourself. Practice on going and meeting people by yourself. I'm not saying go into a dark alley and just randomly talk to strangers like that. Know what you can handle, right? If you can't defend yourself, don't go in dangerous situations. But the whole thing is practice doing things that force you to come face to face with yourself. And sports is really good too. Doing a sport, that camaraderie, that community build up, playing games, board games versus virtual games. Board games, you're looking at the person, like, are they trying to mess with me like Monopoly, and they're like trying to steal my hotel? Or there's tons of real stuff. Like, do like a game night. I'm personally thinking of doing game night just to build that community aspect with family and friends. Just like, come sit down. You don't have to have a drink, but some people need it. Just hang and just be yourself. And a lot of times people need to drink because they can't be themselves, and that has to do with lack of self-awareness. So I'm done with my route. Just reconnect with nature, become more social, practice self-awareness. And I love all your points that you came with, Alex, as well, especially finding balance with your social media. There's an app for that, right? Where you can have timers and alerts to be like, oh, you're on TikTok for way too long. You said you were going to be there no more than 30 minutes a day, and you're at 31, alert, alert, alert. And there are, actually, a last thing I wanted to add is there are minimalist versions of phones that are only for text, call, and email. And some people started doing that as a secondary phone because they want to get away from their busy life. So on top of reconnecting with nature, you can have one of these minimalist phones and take that with you and meditate on a rock in Arizona if you want to. And it'll only ring because like 4 people have that number. So those are my thoughts.
Very great. What you did remind me of is there was kind of a sub point to maximizing real world connections that I need to acknowledge, and that's for the people out there that I realize are not as social. So what does it mean for somebody that isn't, an extrovert, and this kind of puts them in uncomfortable situations? First off, it's a sad reality of life, and somebody's got to tell you, if it wasn't your father, you got to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. So you have to expose yourself out there. The only way to get callous is to be burned, right? You got to be able to get exposed into uncomfortable situations so you could come out a stronger and more powerful person on the other end. I do think Jon really hammered out some really great ways to do that for people that are uncomfortable. You could do things that make you comfortable, and those things will follow along. So do sports, go in a hiking club, crafts, whatever, game night. There's plenty of things that interest you that other people share those interests, and you can bond over that. And then, again, the greatest way to break bread and really build connections is share a laugh with someone. So, find those types of pockets. Like I said, whether it's a hiking club or a knitting club or just going to events, in your local community, go to those types of things and find yourself in random conversations and connections with people that'll develop that muscle for you, and soon it won't be as discomforting as it normally is. Otherwise, guys, we made you laugh, we made you think. The best thing you can do to support this show is share that link. Take that link, put it on your Facebook, text it to your friends. If you liked it, that means somebody else would, and like we said, that's the best thing you could do to support this. Otherwise, you can catch all of our content at our website at www.rethinkthinkpodcast.com. Jon, where can they find you?
newagehuman.com, and all the social media and links are in there, including Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Rumble, and more.
That's right. And you can catch me at Instagram, TikTok, and whatever, all the other ones, Twitter, at Grgat57. Otherwise, guys, we'll catch you at the next episode. Peace.
See ya.